At the beginning of this year, I predicted that Street Fighter 6 might be the surprise accessibility hit of the year. With its new control schemes, the developers have said they were designed to attract more players, from someone who has never touched a fighting game before to the seasoned veteran. Did Capcom succeed in that regard? Let's find out. Hi, I'm Steve Saylor, I'm blind, and I play video games. To find out how, click here or in the description down below. Also hit the like and subscribe buttons for more videos. Alright, now I will admit, this is the first fighting game I have ever reviewed. I've dabbled in fighting games before, but most often I would button mash my way through them. Sometimes I got lucky and won, sometimes not so much, and I got my ass handed to me, and rightfully so. So when the opportunity to review Street Fighter 6 came along, I had to recruit someone who loves the genre and who could help guide me on how to best play. And that someone is Grant Stoner, friend of the show and accessibility journalist. But before we talk to Grant, I wanted to give a quick overview of what is great and not so great about Street Fighter 6. Sadly, this is not the game that blind players have hoped for. At its core gameplay, it actually is amazingly accessible. The telegraphing of the audio cues for attacks and dodges is great and can be learned in multiple ways at your own pace. There is an audio cue that tells you which side of the opponent you're on and will increase in speed or decrease depending on how far or how close you are to your opponent. There is plenty of training and tutorials for each character, so you can learn each move and practice them on how to best counter attacks for your opponent and how to best do the attacks yourself. And with the different control schemes, it meets you at your skill level and gives you ways to progress. However, this is all moot as there is no screen reader present at all to help with anything outside of the fights themselves. So you can, as a blind player, fight and actually compete, but getting to those fights, you can only do it with sighted assistance, as there's too much text to read and navigate. Now, deaf and hard hearing players can play with relative ease, as most often there is not much that relies on sound, but there are exceptions. All dialogue is subtitled. However, in some instances in the story mode, the environmental NPC dialogue isn't captioned, so it'd be hard to know if someone wants to fight you randomly and you wouldn't know it until it already started. Also, what's sad is in both Battle Hub and Fighting Ground, where you can fight with dynamic commentary, none of that commentary is captioned. It is an optional feature to turn on, so it's not mandatory, but still sad, as I thought that was one of the coolest elements of each fight, hearing from the commentator basically saying how I'm doing well or how I need to improve as I'm fighting. Alright, okay, so it's time to bring in Grant to talk about motor accessibility and talk about Street Fighter 6's true star, in my opinion, the control schemes of both dynamic, modern, and classic. So let's talk about dynamic mode for a second. What did you think of dynamic mode for the control scheme?
I think dynamic mode is... I wouldn't really recommend it for accessibility purposes, if only because you can't really use it in an online sense, and you can't really use it with a lot of the other modes in the game. I think it's only available for like one-on-one arcade fights.
For single player mostly, and offline, yeah.
But it's a good way to familiarize yourself with the concepts of Street Fighter, so like zoning, approach your character. It helps to visualize what combos your character can do, or how you should approach each situation. And all you have to do is just press a single button. It's not really a tool that gives you control, if that makes sense. Because it's mostly just teaching you the concepts of Street Fighter.
I agree with that, because I heard it read that it's more of, it is very AI assisted but I feel like that in a way technically you're assisting the AI that is doing majority of the work for you. It gives you some control, like you said, with being able to just hit any button and it will do combos for you without you even having to hit any of the directional the thumbsticks or D-pad. It'll close the gap for you and actually be able to hit those those combos, and it's a great way to, as you said, start off in your journey of Street Fighter. That's the thing I think that I like the most about this game, is that it gives you progression from beginner to up to advanced and veteran, and it gives you every access to control along the way. And dynamic, I would say, is probably, if you're a disabled player and you've never done a fighting game genre before, dynamic is a great place to be able to start, and it's a great place to be able to learn what each of the characters can do. But like, there is also now room to grow if you feel like, okay, I've kind of gotten the basics of this. Where can I move up to that? And that moves into the modern control scheme. Now, Grant, why don't you talk a little bit about what are your thoughts on the modern control scheme?
Yeah, so dynamic, I would say, is like the most passive. Modern is where you begin implementing what dynamic taught you. So basically, modern takes Street Fighter controls and sort of like brings them in line with other fighting games in varying series and genres. Traditionally with Street Fighter, you have 6 buttons that are all attack-based buttons, as well as directional inputs for your special moves and even your combos. With modern, you have 3 attack buttons, so your light, your medium, your heavy. You have a special attack button, where when you tap it, it does one of your special moves, like if you use rear, just because he's the most common. You'll throw a Hadouken. So it basically makes it so that you can perform your own combos without the extensive movements and button combinations that Street Fighter is known for. There are some caveats, like with modern controls, you do 80% damage instead of 100% damage on your special moves. So you're already at like a negative damage difference compared to classic players. You do not have access to all of your special moves or all of your combo like starters or like connectors, because you only have access to 3 buttons. But you don't have access to the really like mechanical side of Street Fighter. But
I would. Oh, there's a but.
Yeah, there's
okay,
a but.
What is the but?
A lot of the content that I've seen from the beta and from what I've played, modern gives you easier access to combos that take maybe days or weeks or months to practice in classic control scheme. You can do 50% combos in modern with the press of like 2 or 3 buttons. So it allows you to still do consistent damage, and it doesn't really like diminish your combos compared to classic. It's probably the biggest accessibility win for physically disabled players in Street Fighter, because it gives you access to characters that may have never been previously available to you because of those inputs.
I would agree, and I think that as we were saying, like the dynamic sort of gives you the way to sort of try out Street Fighter and figure it out yourselves. Like modern is a great way to be able to like learn all of the characters' moves, and you can focus in on, if you just choose one character, you can actually be able to like learn all of the combos that are in both modern and classic. There's plenty of tutorials and training modes that give you the ability to be able to practice a lot of those combos and those assists that essentially will make you fully competitive within online in either the fighting grounds or in the battle hub that actually will make it like basically give you, like you said, about 90% of the Street Fighter experience, and you wouldn't be punished necessarily for it. You can move into modern, and it will get you into the multiplayer. I think it's a really great way to advance your Street Fighter career, because you can just basically try everything out. You can focus on one character. If you're not sure about that one, you can try out a different character, learn their moves, tutorials, and all that stuff. And then the modern combo system basically is that medium ground that I think that Street Fighter or just fighting games in general would learn to benefit from. What's great about the control scheme and with all the accessibility that's there is that it really does make you feel like you could still be competitive against other players that are not disabled.
Yeah,
and then once
I was gonna say, I think modern gives you the most control. Like, well, obviously classic with all the inputs, but for physically disabled players, modern gives you an experience that I still felt like I was playing Street Fighter, if that makes sense. Like, it didn't feel like dynamic, which was super passive, and I didn't really learn anything, I didn't really have fun with it. Modern let me perform combos, still do damage, and still go toe-to-toe with, like, people on classic.
That's what I like about this game a lot. That gives you a lot of freedom to play however you want, try out different things, and it gives you that freedom that you don't feel like you need to be stuck in one character. You can experiment and try things out, and if you really are serious in learning, like you want to go fully in on a character or just in Street Fighter and just learn how to be able to compete and potentially, you know, hey, if we need more disabled players in the fighting game scene, esports scene. So if you want to learn how to compete, I think this is an amazing game that will open up a lot of disabled players to that opportunity, and that is going to be absolutely amazing moving forward.
Also, Street Fighter is allowing modern control schemes in official tournaments.
Yes,
so which
is so huge.
Yep, so you can actually familiarize yourself fully with a modern combo system of a character, and you can bring it to a tournament, and they won't restrict you, which is huge.
Yep, that's the thing I want to see. I want to see more of you. If you're disabled and you're interested in fighting games, try out Street Fighter 6, and I want to see you competing in tournaments. Awesome. Well, Grant, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people be able to find you and your work?
Thank you for having me. Mostly I just post on my work on Twitter at super_grip1994. You can find, usually I do features and reviews of games from accessibility lens, and just follow me there for updates.
Yep, and make sure to be able to check out his column on IGN called Access Designed. It's a really great column. You should definitely check it out. Make sure you follow Grant. I'll leave links to his stuff in the description down below. Overall, I do think that this game is a surprise accessibility hit of the year, but it is missing a lot for some disabled players. But as Grant mentioned, with Capcom's previous commitment to the future of their previous Street Fighter titles, I can see a future where more accessibility support can be added years after launch, and hopefully those concerns will be addressed and updated. For Street Fighter 6's accessibility, I give it a 3 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions that I didn't answer in this review, please leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer based on my play experience. Also, while you're down there, could you do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe buttons? It would help keep this channel growing so I can keep doing cool stuff in the future. Thanks again, and thanks again to Grant, and as always, I remain obediently yours. Bye-bye.